Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Fanteam Focus live stream. I'm joined with Sean. Jack couldn't make it today, or he might be able to drop in halfway through. He's got some emergency going on. We are going to do a mid-season review. We've got some beautiful slides to go through, 20 of them. We're going to talk about every single team. Me and Sean put them together ourselves, right, Sean?
Yeah, what didn't take us too long in the end of it. So
Didn't take
a
us
bit of teamwork. Teamwork makes the dream work.
bit of teamwork made the dream work this week. But yeah, Sean's being modest. It took us absolutely ages. So definitely hit the like button, definitely hit subscribe. I got the agenda here. We're going to talk about the season review, mid-season review. We do a team-by-team analysis, as I said. On that analysis, we'll have SOS, that's meant to be SOT, shots on target per 90, non-penalty expected goals per 90, as well as 90 minute men. And we will also reveal our second chance teams at the end, as well as Jack's. And like I said, Jack might be joining us halfway through if he can get onto the Zoom call. Sean, how are we doing? You had a bit of luck with Bowen so far, is it? Bit of jam?
Yeah, not too. Yeah, we're just obviously recording this on Wednesday night, just as the West Ham game's about to finish, and yeah, Bowen's just got his second. So good for me in FPL and fan team. I've got him captain in both. Less so in the Sky game. Gonna take a massive hit because I've not got him, but overall, yeah, decent return for a player that over the last few weeks definitely been sort of talking him up because he's the main man for West Ham, really, isn't it?
You have been talking about him for quite a while, to be fair to you, yeah. You have. I'm obviously slightly bitter because although I own him in FPL, for example, I have captained Antonio, and unless he scores in the next 5 minutes, I'm going to be a little bit depressed for the next 60 minutes. But
I think he's been subbed, but
oh,
just to ruin your evening. He could even give you the suspense of a few more minutes. I think he's been subbed off.
I think he's my captain in the fan team game as well. Okay, never mind. We're going to talk about the second chance. I've got the graphic up here. £100,000 prize pool, 20 grand to the first place prize. There's a lot of promotion going on over Twitter now at the moment. Sam Allardyce being interviewed by all the big guns in terms of FPL, so it's looking good. It's looking exciting. There's some differences which we'll talk about a little bit later on. Like I say, we've got our teams and everything, but what we wanted to do first is just do a mid-season review, and like I said, we'll talk about the statistics that I mentioned earlier. Now we've got about 26 slides for you today, guys, so we're just going to go straight into team number one because we don't want to take up 2 hours of your time. And it's Arsenal. So, Sean, you put the numbers in, basically, didn't you, for the majority, or for all of these slides? Sean put the numbers in, and I think I dealt with the kind of cleaning it up a little bit graphically and stuff like that. So let me ask you about the numbers. Here we got shots on target per 90. Aubameyang is obviously top of this list. Someone who we can disregard, you reckon?
I think so. Obviously, he's at AFCON at the moment anyway. But I think even when he's back, I can't see a way. Given that I think Lacazette seems to be the main man up top, and they've got obviously four youngsters that play behind in those three spots. I can't see how he's going to get back in. There's rumours of him going to another Premier League team. So as far as I'm concerned, yeah, he's probably an avoid for the Arsenal team, definitely.
Smith Rowe underneath, 1.19. That was quite surprising to me to see him second, but well, actually, when you look at 90 minutes, I was going to say, but he's not playing that much. But when we look at 90 minutes over on the right hand side, he's actually second with 90 minutes. Maybe it's just a recent thing where he's not been playing the 90s, right, or not been starting.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially over the last probably 4 or 5 games, he's been the one that's dropped out of those four that sit in behind Lacazette. But he has come on in quite a few of the games and scored with he's come on with 10, 15 minutes ago and still scored. So that probably does up his shots on target by 90, because if he's only playing 10 minutes, but he's having a shot on target every time, in fact, it's showing that he's having 9 shots for 90 minutes at that rate. So maybe skewed a little bit by that, but we have taken all this data over the whole season. We haven't taken it over a number of weeks. So he does look good when he plays, but it is just the fact that is he likely to play? Which I think is the issue with a lot of those Arsenal, apart from Lacazette, a lot of those Arsenal midfielders. But as we know, with the second chance tournament, we do have the safety net in place. So if you choose a player that doesn't start that game week, the next priced player underneath him in the same position for the same club automatically comes in. Now, a couple of things just to bear in mind with that is even if your player that you selected comes on after, that doesn't matter. It's only the person that starts. And I know that Fanteam had clarified, because I think with double game weeks coming up and stuff, people were querying about the fact that what if my player doesn't start one game, starts the other? Effectively, if he starts one of the 2 games in a double game week, so even if he doesn't start the first, if he starts the second one in a double game week, he would automatically be where you'd score points. So even if he came on only with 10 minutes to go in the first game, you'd get those points plus the points from him starting in the second. If he starts neither, then it drops down on the safety net in terms of you get the next, the cheapest player for that team in that position. And if you look at Arsenal, in terms of the safety net at the moment, and again, to bear in mind throughout the season, prices will fluctuate. So at the moment, Saka is, I ignore Pepe at the moment, but for Arsenal, Saka is valued at 6.7 million. Odegaard is next with Smith Rowe, both at 6.4, and Martinelli's 5.8. So if you went for Saka, it would drop down. He didn't start. It would drop down to, I think if players are on the same price, it drops down to the most informed player. And at the moment, that is Odegaard over Smith Rowe. But you have to bear in mind that if you chose Saka as your starter, and then Odegaard became more expensive than Saka, you wouldn't be able to get Odegaard as a safety net.
Oh, so price changes could screw you over.
So that is something to bear in mind with a few of them, that obviously quite a few have big gaps. So I'm thinking Salah, Mane, Jota, there's 2 million between each of them. But for those that are a lot closer, you just have to bear in mind that only a slight increase or decrease on some positions means that your safety net would change. So just because Saka at the moment is Odegaard, it could quite easily become someone like Martinelli, which isn't still too bad, but there will probably be some examples where you get a worse safety net, so to speak.
Let's move on to the next team then, and we'll continue the conversation, obviously. What's interesting about that is obviously the fact that a player starts, right? But if he comes on, you don't get his points. So it kind of removes like an element of risk that's there in other kind of formats of the game, right? Because you're not getting your one-pointers, so-called one-pointers, etc. Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been mentioned by, I've listened to a couple of spaces with Josh, the obviously current season-long champion, and Greg, who does the stats for us as well. And they've mentioned the Man City midfield is the prime example. You don't usually go there. Well, you're more wary of going there in FPL, for example, because you literally don't know who's going to start. You could choose Amares, for example, and he could come on with 10 minutes to go and you get a one-pointer. Whereas with this, and the Man City midfielders being the best example, is you could choose so Sterling is 9.6. If he doesn't play, you get Mahrez, if not Foden, if not Grealish. So you're basically just choosing a Man City midfielder, and you know roughly what the order is of them you're going to get if they don't start. So I think it really does takes that risk out of it. And I think I've played the Champions League qualifying game for the group stages. It's the same format, and I chose a triple Chelsea defence because they had a relatively easy group apart from Juventus, and just chose. I think I obviously chose Mendy in goal, knowing that if he didn't play, Kepa would come in straight away. And I chose James and Chilwell, obviously not injured at that point, knowing that if they don't play, you're going to get a decent starting Chelsea defender in anyway. So you're really picking, in certain cases, you're picking for a position and a club rather than necessarily the player, because you know whichever player comes in this group of 3 or 4 is a decent option, whoever it is. And I think the bigger teams are probably the ones that fall into that category, I would say.
100%, yeah. We're on Aston Villa now, and I'm just looking at the prices here. Obviously, Philip Coutinho's come in as a new player, 6.5 million. He's now the most expensive Aston Villa asset. Obviously, doesn't factor into our data here, but it's definitely someone to bear in mind in terms of safety net, etc. Coming in at the top there. Watkins 1.06 shots on target per 90 minutes, and he's top of everything here, right, Sean?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, anyone that sort of listened to any of these before, I love Watkins in terms of the fact, I mean, we've chosen these 3 metrics. We've chosen shots on targets in 90-minute men because that's where you get extra points on top of FPL, for example. And Watkins, yeah, loves shooting and pretty much he's played 15 times there, but I think he's only been available for 16 games. So of the 19 that Villa have played, I think he missed the first 3. I think he was injured. So literally, if he plays, he tends to play the full 90. So you're starting on 3 points with him, and he only needs he has one shot every 90 as well. So really, he's starting on 3.4 points every game. And I think I don't know if you saw the game on was it Monday night, the Man U Cup game. I mean, for me, Villa looked the better team there, and I think adding Coutinho into that mix as well. And given the fixtures, Villa have got 19 games left, so that's a few more than some teams. They've obviously got Man U again this weekend, but then they've got their fixture run is really good. They've got Everton, Leeds, Newcastle, Watford, Brighton in the next 5, and even then it stretches to Southampton, West Ham, Arsenal, Wolves. So they don't really play the big teams until the back end of the season. So I think in the season long, and especially the second chance game, I think they're definitely one to target. The only thing with Watkins, there isn't at the moment, there isn't a safety net. So Ings is 0.2 more expensive. There's Cameron Archer, but he's not likely to play. If Watkins is injured, they're more likely to revert to Ings up top on his own with 3 behind him, I would say. So that's just something to bear in mind. Whereas some people, if they get injured or suspended, you probably don't have to transfer them out because you've got the safety net. Whereas if you choose someone like Watkins, the same would be for Antonio and Kane potentially. If anything goes wrong with any of those, there is no safety net really. Therefore, you would have to make a transfer. With others, you wouldn't potentially have to.
So you got Danny Ings there priced at 7.8 million, just zero 0.2 above Watkins. So potentially something to think about there. If you're an Ollie Watkins fan, maybe go for Danny Ings. But I couldn't really see Danny Ings missing out that much. Do you? Just maybe coming off early.
Yeah, unlike the sort of Man City midfielders where you go for a price, and if they don't play, you get someone decent. I think if you want Watkins, you have to go for Watkins. But it could be if Watkins does well in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, his price could go over Ings anyway.
Yeah,
in which case you automatically pick up safety net anyway, and they are quite close, only 0.2 between them at the moment. So, but for me, yeah, Villa, I'm quite interested in obviously cash defensively. Like I said, those fixtures look decent defensive fixtures as well for me. Cash looks really threatening going forward. He's 5 million. And the one that's, I don't know if it's over the line yet or not, but obviously they're rumoured to have bought Digne from Everton. I think at the moment, he's 5.3 in the game. But he, again, could be another really good option. And I wouldn't be put off by people going for at least one of those defensive assets with those fixtures coming up.
Definitely. Brentford next. Ivan Toney popping up in all 3 of these metrics. Top of the 90 minutes. Second on non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90. Not a huge number though. 0.35. Shots on target per 90 though. 0.82. No real safety net underneath him. Just looking here. Mbeumo comes top of price in terms of midfielders. He's top of the non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90 minutes here as well, and he also pops in on the 90-minute men, having 10 90 minutes over the season so far. Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've been quite bullish on Toney all season. Just again, he's a guaranteed starter. Again, he's played 17. I'm pretty sure he missed 3 games with injury or suspension. So if he's fit, he plays a full 90 as well. So again, he's another that starts on 3. He is on penalties. I think they've only scored 1, maybe 2 this year. But the differentiate between him and Watkins is they both have the 90 minutes. They both have relatively similar shots on target per 90. But Watkins just seems to have, he's playing in a team that looks more likely they're going to score goals. I don't think Brentford, they started the season quite well. But I think like a lot of promoted teams that come up with something a little bit different, like I remember Sheffield United a few years ago with the overlapping centre-backs or whatever it was, after everyone's played them once and seen them for half a season, I think they get figured out a little bit and they don't look at the moment like they can necessarily have a plan B. So I'm probably less sort of taken by Toney at the moment. They do obviously have a double the first week in the second chance tournament. However, that is Liverpool and Man U, so it's not the most appealing. They then play Wolves, but then they've got Man City. And we know Wolves are quite decent defensively as well. So I probably would go without them in the second chance. But in terms of the season long, I love Norgard, still love him in terms of the fact that he's that cheap 4.5 million midfielder. And as we can see on the graphic there, he's played 16 times, 90 minutes. So that's an extra point, which is all you want for that sort of thing. I think I played him quite a few times this week just for the fact that Brentford had 2 games. So that's 6 points just for doing nothing essentially.
Yeah, I'm right behind you on that Norgard one there, Sean. If any of you are thinking about getting Brentford defenders or the goalkeeper, though, just my advice is steer clear. I got probably a total of 5 points from him in FPL this week and a double game week. So it's just scarred me for life in terms of that. The next team is Brighton. When we talk about Brighton, we've got players like Welbeck, Trossard coming in on the shots per 90, Mopay, and I don't know, I can't pronounce that guy's name, Sean. Who's that there underneath Mopay?
Mwepo, I think they pronunciation is, yeah.
In terms of non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90 minutes is though Trossard popping up on 13. He's a name that's come up on stream a couple of times, but I don't know. I don't trust him. What do you think about Brighton, Sean?
I mean, I don't know about you. The last few days, I've sort of not really thought a huge amount. Probably last week since the sort of FPL stopped, sort of taking a bit of a backseat and not really thought too much about it. But I look at the fixtures, and Brighton again start with a double in the second chance game. They've got Palace and Chelsea, and I think Lewis Dunk is rumoured to be back soon. I think makes a big difference to that team. I think I'm tempted in. I'm probably going to enter 2 or 3 teams into the second chance one, and I think in one of them, I may well go double Brighton in terms of 2 assets, just because trying to get a quick start. They've got a double game week the first week, and then they've got fixtures of Leicester, Watford, Burnley, Villa. The only thing to bear in mind with Brighton is they do have a blank. I think it's the 3rd game week because they should have played Chelsea, but Chelsea are at the Club World Cup. So that is the only thing to bear in mind. But I think for me, defensively, they're all the same, really. I would say Lamptey probably offers you the most attacking potential. I quite like Solly March as well. He doesn't tend to play that often in terms of start, but with the safety net, you're going to have, he's the 3rd most expensive defender. So you're going to have a defender come on for him. Doesn't really matter who it is. But he has had the most, I think the 2nd most shots on target for a defender this year in the whole game. I think it's Cancelo is top, but then it's Trent and Solly March are 2nd. So if he does start, there is a chance that he could have a shot on target. They get slightly more for that. So I think defensively is one option. But for me, Trossard is the one to go for because I think he's on penalties from what I can remember. I do think they tend to flick about quite a bit. But he plays 90. Again, he's missed a few games for injury, but I think he plays 90 most of the time. And if you look at the shots on target, I think Welbeck and McAllister are slightly skewed by the fact they've not had a huge amount of minutes, whereas Trossard has had the minutes and is still averaging a shot on target a game. So for me, Trossard is an option definitely in the game.
We're going to talk about defensive numbers at the end of each team. So that's definitely something to bear in mind because the player that I would want the most out of Brighton probably isn't on this list, and that's Lamptey and probably even Sanchez as well. Lamptey, he hasn't been playing much recently. Obviously, he's had I don't know what injury it was, but he's had a long spell out. But he's looking so promising, and they look like they've managed his return quite well. But just something to bear in mind for you guys watching, there are players that might not necessarily pop up in these top 3 stats, which could be like the ones that I know I'm looking at, for example. So Burnley next. Maxwell Cornet is on our graphic here, and he does come top of shots on target per 90. I believe he's away at the African Cup of Nations. Sean, am I right?
He is, yeah.
He comes up on top of the non-penalty expected goal amount per 90 as well. He's quite an exciting player. Chris Wood is going to Newcastle. If you believe anything you hear on Twitter, or I don't even know where I've heard it actually, but it sounds like it's happening. 90 minutes is Westwood, McNeil, Brownhill, the FPL darling, who I think has had COVID recently or something, isn't he? I mean, I find it very difficult to get excited about Burnley. I don't know if it's just me. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, the the three sort of, for the 90-minute men, the three that stick out are those three at the top there. They always tend to play the 90. But in terms, McNeil used to be quite attacking, but he doesn't have the numbers this year to back him up. Westwood's on set pieces, but I think in especially in the second chance game, you don't really want plodders. You want people that are going to get you sort of the potential to have serious points. So the only one I like from Burnley, from an attacking sense, is Cornet. But it's worked out reasonably well. Burnley have the most games still to play out of everyone. They've still got 21 games to play in this second chance tournament. Their fixtures currently, they've got Leicester, who are obviously depleted at the moment. I don't know if that game's going to go ahead or not yet, because obviously Leicester has postponed the last one. They've got Watford, but then they've got Arsenal, Man U, Liverpool, and Brighton. So their games aren't great until mid-February. But then after that, they could have the most games of anyone left and have Cornet back. So I'd be looking at getting him in sort of mid-February to sort of take advantage of the fact that I think he'll probably be even more the main man if Wood goes, because I think they brought him as a left back originally and they've pushed him up into midfield. I could see him playing behind whoever the striker is, Rodriguez, Vidra, whoever. So yeah, he'd be the only attacking option I'd go for. I'm tempted, less tempted so now I think, but I think with the games in hand, I think Pope would be a good option, the keeper, just because keepers tend to on the whole score roughly the same, and the fact he's got in some cases 4 more games than a lot of other teams. So Chelsea, Man City, and West Ham, they've got 4 more games over those teams. But I'm looking at maybe having a keeper for the first few games while Burnley's games are difficult, and then around sort of mid-February their fixtures do drop off. And that's when I think I'd try and get Pope in. But they're the only two that I'm looking at the moment, I would say.
2 fixtures this week as well for Burnley, right? And their home fixtures. Yes. Burnley's home numbers look quite good, right? So, I say quite good. They look okay from what I've seen in terms of defensively. So hear me out here. I'm thinking not only Pope, but potentially Charlie Taylor or Matt Lowton as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's when this first came out, you saw the fixtures originally. You see the volume of games Burnley have got. Attacking wise, you probably don't want to go there, aside from Cornet when he comes back potentially. I did originally in one team have a triple up defensively, because I thought if you're going to go for it, if you're going to go for 1 and you're going to go for 2, you might as well go all in for 3, because if they don't get a clean sheet, you're knackered anyway. And just the volume of games they've got, and especially the first week, Watford and Leicester are depleted, and Watford aren't as free scoring as they used to be. The 4 after that are the ones that worry me in Arsenal, Man U, Liverpool, and Brighton. But yeah, I'm definitely toying with the idea of going for like a block defence, and they've got the best fixtures in the first game week.
I'm quite surprised that on the 90 minutes column here, we haven't got like just everybody on 90 minutes, because Sean Dyche likes to play his players like every week. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure when you were looking at the numbers, maybe there was like 6 people on 1390s or something like that. Or was it? Or maybe I'm wrong.
I think there was quite. I think those 3 tend to play a lot of them, but then you'll get. So I'm thinking strikers here. So like you got Wood, Barnes, Vidra, and Rodriguez. So you tend to like bring one off with 10 minutes to give the other one a run out. Yeah. I think he does. They obviously those 3 play midfield. I think he takes whoever the other one is. It would be, is it Gudmundsson? Johan Gudmundsson. He plays a bit. I think Lennon plays a bit. And the 90 minutes, I've only included the midfielders and the attackers, because like you said, the back 4 of Burnley is pretty much the same and play 90. But for Fanteam, you don't get the extra point for the defender. Yeah,
of course. Yeah, of course. My apologies. We got Chelsea next. Mason Mount is part of our graphic. Brighton, Man City, Tottenham, and Crystal Palace next. Brighton and Man City part of a double game week. Mason Mount comes top of every single metric that we're looking at today on the show, and he's great value in Fanteam, right? A no-brainer, Sean?
The issue you've got with Chelsea is the fact, yes, they've got a double. It's not the easiest double. Man City obviously difficult. Brighton do like to keep the ball, knock it about. Tottenham, probably not as difficult as it was, but then they do have 2 blanks, and that's the issue because they're at the Club World Cup. So you can't, unless you're going to wild card sort of when they go, you can't go too heavy on Chelsea because in the second chance game, you can't have people missing out really. There's a lot obviously with Chelsea. If you pick a priority player, it's not like you've got a safety net for someone to come in because they're not playing at all.
It's a great point actually for the second chance game. You have to look at these blanks, don't you? Because there's no bench.
Yeah, that will be the key. I think. I mean, it's difficult to plan at the moment. We know that games are getting called off just before, and games are getting dropped in a week before they kick off. But knowing so I think it's FA Cup quarter-final weekend or the fifth round where there tend to be blanks and stuff for FPL. That's when you need to try and you only get one chip, and that's the extra wildcard chip. So you've got to try and that's what I think you've got to try and spread your players to an extent, because if you do get a blank, it's going to cost you a lot to transfer them. But obviously you do get to roll transfers in this, unlike normal FPL or normal Fanteam where you only have a maximum of 2 every week. So if you can take your team up for the first 4 or 5, you've then got 5 transfers sat in the bank that you can then navigate potentially blanks, which you wouldn't have. So if you go for Brighton players or Chelsea players, when there's a blank, you're going to have to use a transfer. So I think if they had easier fixtures, I'd be more tempted. Like if they had teams in the bottom half, but they've got 3, obviously in Man City's case, a really good team, but Tottenham and Brighton are decent, and Conte's shorn them up a bit. Although they've just lost 3-0 on aggregate, I think it was in the Carabao Cup. But I think if you go on differential, Chelsea would be the way to go, because I think they'll be really low owned in the second chance game because people will just avoid them because of those 2 blanks.
It's a great point, yeah. And then maybe you save your transfers up and deal with it at the time those blanks happen. But I think it's only in about 3 or 4 weeks, is it?
I think it's only 2 weeks. In fact, I think it's game week 24 is in Fanteam is when they go. So you'd make your team 20, so in 23 you'd have 1 transfer, 20 you only have 2. So if you had 2 Chelsea, you would have the transfers to take them out. But then that doesn't take into account potential doubles, or you might have other issues that come up, for example.
Yeah, of course. Okay, let's head on to the next team. We've got Crystal Palace. Benteke, Jack's boy, coming top of shots on target per 90 and non-penalty expected goals per 90, but nowhere near on 90 minutes is, because as we know, he doesn't start or play every game. Edouard, maybe someone who looks like he is kind of being favoured up front, good form. Someone who's not on this list, someone like Eze, now that people are away at African Cup of Nations, like Zahags, etc. Gallagher pops into all 3. I mean, there are good options at Crystal Palace, aren't there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the issue, especially early on in the fixtures, is they're so up and down. So you've got Brighton this week. You've got no blanks, no doubles at the moment. I think they've got 1 rearranged fixture to go in. So you've got Brighton, which is okay, but then you've got Liverpool. Then it goes down to Norwich and Brentford, so it's decent. Then it goes up to Chelsea, and it's Burnley, Wolves, and it's Man City. And then after that, they're decent. So I think you'd probably only want 1 if you went for it. And the issue you've got at the moment is, I think striker-wise, they do tend to create a lot. So you could just go, do you know what, I want a Crystal Palace striker. I'll go with the most expensive one, and then if he doesn't start, I'll get whoever. But at the moment,
so that's Edouard 5.9.
Benteke's 5.9.
Oh, they're both, sorry, both 5.9, yeah.
So you could go for Edouard at the moment and thinking, well, if he doesn't start, I'll get Benteke in. But then if Benteke goes up in price and then Edouard doesn't start, but Benteke does, you're not getting either of them. You'd get Ayew. So there's only 1.1 of a million between all 3 of them. If there was a bit more difference between them, I would be tempted to go with one of them. Again, like you said, you could go for a midfielder. So you've got Gallagher, Eze. I think Elise's look decent as well. And it's not great, but there are so many Crystal Palace midfielders that if they don't start and you went for, I don't know, if you fancy going on a punt for Elise, who's the cheapest at 5.5, you've still got Schlupp, Milivojevic, Will Hughes and James McArthur under them. They're not most exciting picks, but at least you're going to get someone out to get points.
Get a couple of points, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting there on Crystal Palace. Next up, we got Everton. DCL looks like he's back. Normally a stats monster. You can see he's top of the shots on target per 90. But again, like Sean mentioned earlier, maybe skewed slightly because he's played so little minutes. Richarlison, I think, injured. Gray comes into 2 here. I've actually got Gray in my team, spoilers. I don't really know why. 5.9 million. I looked at my team earlier, just before we set this up, because I picked it a few nights ago. And I was like, why have I got this person? Why have I got this person? But then I had to remember the rules. Does that make sense? Because
Yeah,
it's totally
yeah.
different. So
I think I've just done the same. Yeah,
yeah. So I started taking people out, and then I was like, oh no, that's why I picked him, because of like safety nets or whatever, or double game weeks. So yeah, what do you think about Everton though, in general?
I think I've done the same as you. I changed my team early because I hadn't looked at it for probably 2 weeks, and I had Gray in it. And I took him out and put someone else in, and then I've just realised looking at this why I had Gray in, because they don't have. They've got 20 games, which is only behind Burnley, to play for the rest of the season, and they've got 3 games to fit in because there are 3 postponements, which are Burnley, Newcastle, and Leicester, all decent games, and their fixtures to start with are Norwich, Villa, Newcastle, Leeds, Southampton. I mean, that's a decent set of 5 fixtures. So I think that's probably why I had Gray in, because I wasn't too sure at Calvert-Lewin at the time, and Gray is the same price as Doucouré, who is pretty much guaranteed to start. I would love to have Calvert-Lewin in, but I think at the start of the second chance tournament, fixtures sort of sway you to only probably 3 or 4 different options. I don't think Calvert-Lewin is one of them. But the fact that he is playing Norwich first week, he could outscore some of the guys that have got double game weeks. I'm talking like Ronaldo, anyone like that. He could score a couple of goals and beat them, and then he's got decent fixtures going forward. And he's probably going to have, hopefully, I don't think it's going to happen, but I'd love there to be some more fixture announcements for the rearranged games, so we get a bit more of an idea of what's going to happen. And the thing with Calvert-Lewin is he has got safety nets underneath him. I mean, it's Richarlison who is injured at the moment, but may come back, and then Rondon again, which isn't great. But the thing you have to remember with the second chance tournament is, if Calvert-Lewin gets injured, you don't have to bring in another striker. So if you're playing 4-4-2, you could switch Calvert-Lewin to Phil Foden in a 4-5-1. So you've got that flexibility. Obviously, if you've only got one striker and it's Calvert-Lewin, you have to bring a striker, and you have to have at least, I think it's three defenders, 2 midfielders, and 1 attacker.
But if he's injured though, Sean, could you just keep him in your team and rely on the Richarlison safety net? Obviously, if he's back from injury.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you would use that option for, again, hark back to Man City, but if Foden got injured, you would probably just leave it, because you know you would get, I don't know who the next person to Foden is, but you'd get a Silva or a Gundogan, whoever it is. Yeah. And you know that you would get a Man City midfielder, and you'd be happy with that choice. You'd probably be less happy if Calvert-Lewin got injured. You'd get Richarlison or Rondon. So you'd probably be able to suck it up for a week or 2.
Yeah.
But you'd probably want to still move him out. But yeah, you could move him out just about. You could move him to TAA if you haven't got him, if your formation allows it as well. So
Leeds next. Not really doing what they were doing last season at the moment. Looking at 90 minutes, you got Stuart Dallas, who maybe personifies that. Rafinha, who has been getting points, I suppose, maybe not lately. Rodrigo comes into non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90 minutes up the top, but not someone who plays all the time. Then you got Rafinha underneath. If I remember rightly, he's a bit of an awkward price in Fanteam, Rafinha.
Yes, yeah. More expensive than FPL, for example.
Yeah.
I think it's 7.5 in Fanteam, so it's $1 million more.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Let me just pull it up. So yeah, 7.6 million. He's top though. So...
I mean, yeah. I mean, you've got everyone underneath. You've got Harrison, Harrison, James, everyone. I like Rafinha just because he, especially with Bamford out, he is the sort of the go-to guy, isn't he? In terms
talisman,
of, yeah. The one that does surprise me is the player we've got photographed there in Tyler Roberts.
I was wondering why, because you put that on there. I was wondering, what's he done yet? Why has he put Tyler Roberts there? Go on.
And with some players, you sort of think, oh, he's got the most shots on target per 90 because he's only played 300 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, this is what
but he's played a lot of minutes as well. He is having a lot. I mean, the shots might not be the best shots on target, but his numbers are decent. I mean, I've looked at it here actually, got it in front of me. He's had 12 shots on target. this season. I don't think the shots on target includes goals, but the next best is Rafinha with 8. So he is
Oh wow.
miles ahead. I
Is he
think that shots on
playing?
target.
Is he playing the upfront role that Bamford would be playing, and now Bamford's out? I haven't really watched much of Leeds. I think.
It's difficult to know. I think they tend to, because I think I've seen him. I think Dan James has been the furthest forward a lot of the
Yeah.
time. But yeah, I mean, he's probably not. Well, I'm saying he's probably not. He isn't really an option in the second chance. I don't think, because if he doesn't play, you've got, I think you've got Forshaw or Phillips who are both. I think Forshaw's fit, but Phillips is injured. So you're probably not getting a huge safety net. But I think in the season-long game, he's a potential sort of under the radar. He'll be 0% owned. I guarantee it. And his stats are decent. So he's in and around Rafinha in terms of non-penalty XG. And they've got decent fixtures. We look at there, they've got West Ham, Newcastle, Villa, Everton, their next 4. I think they've got a couple of games to rearrange as well. So I think for me, if I was going for an asset in the second chance, it would be Rafinha. Wouldn't go them defensively because I just think we've got so many injuries at the back. There's just no one. But yeah, I think maybe it's a bit of a punt in the season long. Tyler Roberts could be the way to go.
I look forward to seeing him in your team. Leicester. Leicester next. I put Daka on here. Maybe I was influenced a little bit by your Tyler Roberts picture, but I put Daka on here. There's rumours that he might be back fit, and we know that Vardy is injured, or I think Vardy's injured, and Iheanacho is either injured or away at AFCON.
He's at AFCON. He's actually
AFCON,
scored yesterday. Yeah.
Oh, did he? There we go. Yeah. So I put Daka on there. Maddison creeps in, 2 shots on target per 90 minutes, just below Daka and Perez, who again might be skewed because of the amount of minutes they played. Then you got Maddison top of the non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90 minutes. They got a double game week this week. The more I talk about it, the more I think you need Maddison. But Tielemans is quite a good price, if I remember correctly, in FPL. Quite a tempting offer. And his numbers are quite good as well.
Yeah, in Fanteam, they are the same price, both 6.7 million. I think, just given the fact, again,
James Maddison and Tielemans are the same price?
Yes.
Wow.
In the Fanteam. And Maddison has only scored 10 points more than Tielemans, which you sort of think, the way he's been playing, you think he'd have scored a lot more. And I've just looked, they've actually played exactly the same minutes as well, surprisingly.
Did you know this though? Maddison has only played 3 90 minutes this season.
Has he?
Yeah, he's only managed 3 games and he's played 90 minutes. I think he's played every single game for Leicester, but only 3 times played 90 minutes. And they were all away.
And that, really?
Yeah, interesting. Something I came across the other day.
But I mean, yeah, the thing is we think at the moment they've got a double. Because obviously they called their last game off against, was it Everton this midweek?
Yes.
Because they didn't have the players.
Mm-hmm.
And the issue, I've had this discussion in a couple of chats and stuff. Because there's been obviously a lot in the Twitter community about the fact that how have they got the game called off, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I've been thinking it, and then I saw people talking about it, and I'm like, yeah, I 100% think that as well. But I didn't get involved.
But I think a lot of them, if you look at it, there's not a huge amount of COVID cases. A lot of them are because they've got a huge amount of injuries
and African players. Basically,
I think they've got 4 players at AFCON, and I think they've probably got only 1 or 2 COVID cases. So I was looking at it thinking, well, actually, from whatever pool of players they had for the Everton game that got called off, actually, who is going to come back into the team that would mean they've got enough players for the weekend? So that's still to be seen if actually it is a double. If the game against, I think it's Burnley, isn't it? They've got first game. So I think if that gets called off, then they probably look slightly less appealing because they'll only have a single. It's against Tottenham. And then they've got Liverpool in a couple of games as well. But as it stands at the moment with a double, I'm definitely looking at you can't look at an attacker because you don't know who's going to play, and they've only got 3 attackers. Like you said, Vardy's injured, Iheanacho's not here, Daka may or may not play. So you have to look at a midfielder. I wouldn't go near them defensively because they look atrocious because they've got no one playing defensively, really. So really, it's Tielemans, Maddison. Or if you want to take a bit of a punt, I wouldn't put people off Lookman. He's 6 million. And I think if he doesn't play for whatever reason, you've got Perez as a safety net, who I think
You'd think he
one of
would
them
play,
two
right?
would start.
If they were playing Lookman, you would think that if they're not playing Lookman, they'd be
They'd
playing
be playing
Perez
Perez.
in the situation they're in at the moment, right? Yeah,
I mean,
makes
if
sense.
they don't, you've got Brighton at 5.5, who's not great, but I think
Dewsbury Hall,
Lookman could be.
4.5 million.
Yeah, they've got tons under there, haven't they? So you will have a safety net. It might not be the most appealing, but yeah, Lookman could be a bit of a punt if people want to go for it. But I think I would stick with Tielemans just because I think he'd be on set pieces
Penalties
and
as well.
penalties.
Yeah.
With Vardy not playing, so Tielemans would be the one I'd go for at the moment.
Okay, cool. Liverpool next. Mo Salah obviously away at AFCON, so Jota probably steps into his shoes as the kind of guy you want, right, from Liverpool, as well as obviously Trent Alexander-Arnold to maybe keep that third Liverpool spot for Salah, or maybe even have Salah in your team if you're talking about second chances or whatever. What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, I know a lot of the people are thinking about Salah, thinking, well, do we keep him in, knowing that we'll want him back in a couple of weeks? I think there's a lot of budget because you're picking Salah knowing you're going to get Jota.
Yeah.
And there is, what's the difference in price between them? 5.7 million. Well, that's a lot of budget when you've only got 80 million to spend. That's a lot of your budget just sat there for one player. And I mean, I've talked before that I haven't got Salah in FPL, much to everyone's hilarity over the last few weeks. But I am moving up. I'm up to about 400k now. But he didn't look as on it the last 2 or 3 weeks, I would say.
Well, that 0-pointer. I don't think we've met up since the 0-pointer. Sean, to be honest.
No, I love that, to be honest.
Yeah.
Can't complain about that.
I think I timed it right as well. Just sold him at the right time.
Yeah, definitely. But I think, I mean, they have got decentish games when he comes back. But for me, I'd rather have the money in, because both Kane and Ronaldo have doubles to start with, don't they? I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
I would rather have the money in those,
both,
knowing both of them.
Yeah.
Keep a couple of mil back, and then when the time comes to Salah coming back, moving one of those two plus the money in the bank to Salah at that point. Because I think the money, rather than have, if you had Salah in from the start, you're not going to be able to afford Ronaldo and Kane because that's going to cost you 35, 36 million if you're 80 million, which only leaves you 44 for 8 players, which means you're not going to get anyone decent. So I think I'd rather spend the money. I don't think I've even gone for Jota because Jota is decent. You see his stats there. He's the best non-penalty XG when they're all playing. How will Liverpool play with neither? I don't think they've had to play with neither Salah or Mane for a long time. And I don't think the players that will come in for them, obviously they're not near the quality of them, but I do wonder if they will struggle. They have only got Brentford and Crystal Palace, but I'm happy to go without.
They're hugely important to the way they play, and Salah and Mane, and not just with the ball, without the ball. I think is bound to be a huge drop off, surely.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about the Salah strategy when we show our teams later on, because it sounds like one of us might have Salah and one of us might have Kane and Ronaldo.
Maybe.
Man City next. Okay, take it away with Man City, Sean, because there's a lot of safety net conundrums to be had here, right?
Yeah, I mean, the thing to note with Man City alongside Chelsea and West Ham, they have the fewest games. They don't have a double. I don't know when they will. I think the only way they'll get a double is if they get a rearrangement from the FA Cup. So you're not really going to get double game weeks in the short term, at least, anyway. And they've got Chelsea first up, but then they have got Southampton, Brentford, Norwich, Tottenham, so a bit easier. But yeah, as we mentioned before, the midfielders, as we record this, the format of them is you've got De Bruyne as well top. He's 11.1 million. You're probably not going to go for him, I'd say. It then gets more interesting. The fact you've got Sterling, he's 9.6. You've then got Mahrez as 8.5. He's obviously at AFCON at the moment. Foden's 8.2, and you've got Grealish and Gundogan at 7.5, and Silva at 7.3. I think a popular strategy will potentially be to either go for Mahrez or Foden. Because if you go for Mahrez 8.5, it's only 0.3 more than Foden. But if you fancy Mahrez as a bit more of a differential, buy him as there, knowing that over the next few weeks or when Mahrez doesn't start, you get Foden, who obviously is a great sort of substitute for him. And so I think if you're going for a midfield, I think Sterling could be a differential because I think people won't go that high in terms of value. He's about 1.1 million more than Mahrez. I think people won't go for him. And I think he could be a very low-owned Man City asset. So if you want one in the first sort of couple of weeks, he'd be the one I'd be tempted to go for, I think, if your budget can stretch that far.
Yeah, just looking at it now, I think you can choose anyone apart from Bernardo Silva. I think Bernardo Silva is just out of it because of the price. He's 7.3 million, and underneath that you just get Rodrigo, Fernandinho, Cole Palmer. I don't know if it goes down any further. No, basically. It's everyone else just is so pickable, but then when you get down to Bernardo, it's just so much more risk, right? Because Gundogan 7.5 drops down to Bernardo if he doesn't play. Grealish, I wouldn't really. I don't know. Grealish could be a good one as well, and he could drop down to Gundogan if he doesn't play, for example. Mahrez, I think, is a perfect one, which you highlighted earlier. And even Sterling and De Bruyne as well. So, but yeah, it's an interesting one because it looks like Bernardo is just a little bit ruled out there.
If you like Bernardo, I know people have gone off Bernardo the last couple of weeks. He's not produced as much as he had been. I wouldn't be put off by Silva because he's only 0.2 less than Grealish and Gundogan, which means that there doesn't need to be a huge increase or even one of those two decrease, Gundogan or Grealish, and you've got a safety net then of one of those two. And for me, even if Silva doesn't start, Rodri's not the worst £5 million midfielder in this game.
No, I suppose.
This season, he scored 78.4 points, which is only bettered by Silva himself, Sterling and Mahrez.
Yeah,
so Foden hasn't scored more, Gundogan hasn't scored more, KDB hasn't scored more. He's the fourth highest scoring City midfielder. So it's not ideal because you're not buying an attacking mid to then get Rodri as the sub, but given that you might get a safety net from Silva at some point, Rodri is not the worst for me. But if you went Jota at the moment and he didn't play for whatever reason, I think that it drops down to like Harvey Elliott, who obviously is injured at the moment. And then it drops down to Thiago, Minamino, and Oxlade-Chamberlain. That for me is a worse drop than Silva to Rodri.
Yeah, it's a good point, actually. Rodrigo being an infinitely better pick in Fanteam than he is in FPL, for example, probably something which I didn't take into consideration. And if we look into 90 minutes here on the side as well, Bernardo and Rodri top of that as well. So maybe a little bit less risk than I originally thought, right? Good stuff. Let's go into the next one. Man United, no surprise who comes on top of absolutely everything apart from 90 minutes is, and that is Cristiano Ronaldo himself. A lot of things going on behind the scenes at Man United, or if you read the papers, or if you believe what you read in the papers, there is big transition. So not playing amazingly, winning some games, losing some games. Big double game week this week. Brentford away and Aston Villa away. Sean, you having Ronaldo in your team?
Yes. Essentially, like you said, I know what do you have? Is it a back spasm or something on Monday that he didn't play? So as long as then nothing else comes out about the injury.
I'm not sure what it was. Hip. I read hip, and then I saw a picture, and he wasn't in the country. So I think he's just having a break. We'll see.
So for me, if he's going to play both games, you're going to get. He plays 90 in most of the time because he's only got 11 there, but he obviously didn't play the first few weeks of the season. So I imagine when he played, he pretty much played the 90. So you're looking at 6 points for the two games. He averages nearly 1.5 shots on target every 90. So over the two games, that's 3 shots. That's an extra 1.2 points. And we know how in and around the goals he's been as well. So for me, in the opening week, he seems a bit of a no-brainer. With their fixtures after that being West Ham, Burnley, Southampton, Leeds, Watford up to the end of February. And they've got a Brighton rearrangement as well. So he, for me, would be... I think I've got him as captain as well. I think he's there's a decent enough base for him, given it's a double game week, and he could do anything.
I haven't got him in my team, and I instantly want him now. The fact that you got Cavani underneath him as well as a safety net is swaying
Definitely.
me a little bit, because I
Yeah,
can't imagine either one of them not playing, if that makes sense. I
yeah,
think one of them will play, yeah.
definitely.
Good. I think we can move on to Newcastle. Alan St. Maximin coming on top of all three of our metrics: shots on target, penalty minutes, no penalty expected, goal involvement, penalty minutes, and 90 minutes itself. He's a good player, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he was someone that again tops the 90 minutes. He was playing pretty much every minute earlier on in the season. He's taken a bit of a step back since then. Um, the only issue you've got with Newcastle is the fact that obviously Wilson's out. Probably looks like maybe for the season, which is obviously why they're looking to buy Chris Wood.
He's
So I
out for
think
the
if
season. I
Chris
didn't
Wood,
realise that. Callum Wilson's out for the season, is he?
I feel like now your shock at that statement makes me feel like I need to check it. But I think there have been rumours going about that he's out for we said 8 weeks. So on BBC it said 8 weeks, but
Fair enough.
I swear I saw something knocking about that he's out for a while anyway. But yeah, so I can see why they're buying Chris Wood. But again, Healy is the main man going forward. You wouldn't go near Wolves. You wouldn't go near Newcastle defensively, I don't think, even with Trippier. He'd have to do a lot of assisting for goals for me to even be like considering, given the fact that they don't know like they're going to keep any clean sheets. So if I was going for a Newcastle asset, I would go for probably St. Maximin at the moment. I still wouldn't go for Wood, just because I don't know what he's in the game actually. Chris Wood, it shows how much you look at Burnley assets. He's 6 million in the game. It's not bad. And I think if they keep the same price, he would have Joe Linton as a safety net who at least has been playing. He looks a bit quite rejuvenated underneath.
Yeah, he's been playing midfield, right?
Yeah, so he's out of position. The fact that he'd only score 4 points for a goal rather than 5, even though he's playing in midfield. So if they can show something going forward and they do click, then maybe their games, Watford, Leeds, Everton, Villa, West Ham, and even past that. I mean, their last 4 games are difficult. They've got Liverpool, Man City, but they've got a decentish run before that. So I don't think I'd start with them. Again, season-long contests, yeah. St. Maximin is a decent player. I think he's 6.7. Yeah, 6'7".
Midfielder as well. I like those numbers. I like them.
Yeah.
6.7 million. Yeah.
In a team that's been struggling as well, really. Even when Wilson was fit, he played 10 games, but he was in and out of the team as well. So he is a decent option, I think.
Yeah, I think he's the only one you can consider my what's the word? Opinion. Norwich next. Pookie. 0.24 non-penalty expected goals per 90. Norwich aren't great. We're not going to sugarcoat this one. Probably won't spend too much time talking about them, to be honest with you. Straight up, sure, would you pick any Norwich players? Are there any which are on your radar at all?
The only one I would be semi-tempted to even look at would be Tim Krul. If they had a decent set of fixtures and had like a decent double in there as well. And it was around when I was wildcarding. That I would potentially go with, but they haven't got a double to start with. He's cheap at 4.5, but unless they miraculously pull a triple out, so a triple game week or something, then in which case, because he did game, like any keeper, he does well because he makes a lot of saves. Doesn't keep a clean sheet, but
he's quite good at saving penalties as well.
Yeah,
you could see him saving a penalty before the end of the season.
Yeah,
but it's just clean sheets. Is he going to get any?
He'd be the only one I'd look at.
Southampton next. Brozier, is he injured? What happened yesterday? Do you know?
I don't think so. He scored.
He scored. I think he got injured. I don't know. I didn't watch it. I just saw it on Twitter. So you got Brozier and Armstrong popping up on this list quite a lot. Interesting to see Adam Armstrong actually coming up on the 90s, right? Because he's someone I've owned in both FPL and Fanteam, and he's extremely frustrating in terms of game time. But I suppose 90 minutes isn't actually that many 90 minutes, right? So maybe it's just the fact that James Ward-Prowse and Romeo are Ralph's boys. What do you think, Sean?
it's difficult with Southampton. I think they tend to just rotate the strikers. You've got Adams, Brozier, Armstrong. You
So
don't really know
frustrating.
who's going to start. Which with the second chance team, second chance tournament isn't as bad because you will get the safety net. I'm just looking who there. So Adams is 6.6, Armstrong 6.4, Brozier is 5.2. Brozier's, I think, if he's not injured, I didn't know about the injury, but if he's not injured, I think he's a great option in the season long game because he's so cheap that
Yeah,
he's a sort of
5.2,
great
yeah.
bench option. But I don't think you could pick him in the second chance because there's no Shane Long's underneath him, but not going to play. And I think there are better options in the 6.5 million range for strikers. James Ward-Prowse, again, for me, is more of a season-long game because you know he's going to churn the points out. Not going to be great points, but they're just going to churn them out every week. He plays 90 most of the time, as you can see from the graphic there, on penalties. So he's just a person you can just stick in your team knowing that he's going to probably score at least 3 points every week, and then he'll chip in with a penalty and a goal every now and then.
Assist.
Which is obviously, which is what Josh, the winner from last year, he said last year he had Ward-Prowse and Souček that just did that. They just sat in his team and just kept ticking the points over every week. So I probably wouldn't go near them. Defensively, they just seem a bit up and down. Livermento's out, I think, now, isn't he? He was the FPL darling for a while. But yeah, I'm not fancying Southampton, especially given they've got no double at the start and they're playing Wolves and Man City, probably two of the best defences in the league, I would say. So
Yeah, it's a tough couple of fixtures, but apart from that, I think Adam Armstrong, in theory, could be a good pick in the what's it called, second chance game because of the Brozier thing, and that depends on Brozier's injury though, because Adam Armstrong's 6.4 million, Brozier 5.2 million. So the fact that the strikers rotate wouldn't really affect you, right? And you'd have one of those pretty decent options,
yeah,
almost guaranteed every week. So that's my
I'd
thoughts.
say so. Yeah.
Who have we got next? Spurs. You mentioned earlier, and I spotted in some data that I looked at, that recently Conte has shored them up, right, in defence. It's led me to be considering Spurs defenders this week. But we'll look at defensive data a little bit later. Kane and Son, obviously the boys. Son is out for a little while. Kane's got this double game week this week. Sean wants to have Kane and Ronaldo. Is there anyone else you'd consider?
I originally didn't have Kane. I had Son because I think at the price, he's like, what is he, 1.5 million cheaper? You get more points for goals, etc.
Yeah.
I would much rather had Son.
I think
But
I've got
obviously
Son in my team now, actually.
Okay. And the thing with that is, it's not like Salah where you get, well, there's still a gap, but there's a 3.5 million gap between Son and Moira, who's the next best. So I don't know how long Son is out for, but you wouldn't keep him because that 3.5 million could go a long way. But I've gone Kane just purely because of fixtures. For me, the two this week in the double, I know you can't really look too far back on stats, but if you were to say the two teams that Kane really likes playing against, Arsenal, North London derby, he scored tons of goals in derbies, and he scored tons of goals against Leicester, and Leicester are going to be depleted. He has the most shots on target per game. He plays the full 90, so he is similar. And actually, just talking about it now, I think I would probably have my captaincy on him over Ronaldo, just because I think he's more assured of playing two lots of 90. And I think Tottenham probably will create more in those games than Man United will in theirs. So I think, for me, Kane's a no-brainer this week, especially. Their games do get a bit tougher. So they've got Chelsea next up, and then they've got Southampton, Wolves, Man City. But like I said, if you've got holding Ronaldo and Kane, and you want to get Salah back in, then you're only a couple of million quid off. So if you can leave the money in the bank as well, it's an easy switch back to Salah.
Love it. Yeah, it's a difficult one for me, Kane or Ronaldo. But Kane and Ronaldo does sound good. But we'll talk about this a little bit more later on. Strategy-wise, Watford, King and Dennis, the stars of fantasy football, I guess you would say. Sarr injured, I think. I mean, he's been injured for a while. I mean, I just obviously haven't thought about him for a while, so I'm pretty sure he's just been injured for a while. He hasn't gone to this African Cup of Nations, has he? So
I don't know. I think he was called up. I know he was injured beforehand, but I don't know if because he didn't. I don't think he played before AFCON, but whether he has gone, I don't know. But either way, he's not available anyway for the foreseeable.
I think I've got a bit of a blind spot when it comes to Watford, but it hasn't stopped me putting a couple of Watford players in my team for the second chance as it stands. Um, where do you stand on Watford, Sean?
I'm in two minds. Defenders, midfielders, for me, ignore. I don't think
Yeah,
there's anyone. Someone like Sissoko is good in the season-long game because he's 4.5 million, plays every week, blah blah blah. The issue I've got here is I want a Watford striker because their two games are probably the best two games this week. They've got a double, and it's Newcastle and Burnley.
and then it's Norwich
So two
after
teams.
that.
Then it's Norwich. So that set of three fixtures is extremely decent. So for me, I think in one team I originally had both Dennis and Sarr. No, sorry, Dennis and King in one team, double Watford attack. What has the world come to? I think you probably want one. I can't remember who. I've gone for one of them in my pick. I can't remember which one it is. The only other thing I'm sort of toying with, which is mad, is Backman as a keeper. He's 4.4, so cheap, probably the cheapest starting keeper you can get. And he's got Foster underneath him, so there was a bit of talk that Foster might be back soon. But it's just that it's those runner fixtures. Um, they haven't kept a clean sheet all season.
Haven't they?
But he's played. I'm just seeing how many games he's played. He's played one, two, three,
I've put him in my
four,
team.
five,
I've
six,
no
seven,
idea why.
eight.
I'm looking at my team now.
He's
He's in there.
he's played nine. He's played 9 games and he scored 26 points. So he's averaging about 3 points a game. So it's not bad. And it's just the fact they're playing Newcastle, Burnley, and Norwich. You sort of think, well, if they're going to get a clean sheet this season, surely it's going to come in the next 3 games. And my thinking with Backman is they've got quite a few games. So they could have a double dropped in as well. Given how rubbish Burnley's games are for the next 4 or 5 weeks, I am considering going with Backman to start and then switching to Pope after about 4 or 5 game weeks. So avoid Burnley's difficult games, get Watford's easier games, and then do the keeper switch then. Obviously, it will cost you about £1 million more, but it might not be that much of a difference because if Burnley don't do very well, Pope could drop and Backman could rise a little bit. So you might not actually have to find that much money. It seems mad that I might start in one of my teams triple Watford. It could happen.
I'm looking at my team now. I've got triple Watford in my team, and I remember picking this team and being quite focused on what we've got on the bottom of the slides here: numbers of games left to play. Right, for almost my entire selection. So maybe that's where my triple Watford has come from. But yeah, you're not the only one who's thinking about it. I've done it so far. It probably won't happen, but we'll see. West Ham next. Antonio, and Rice Baby. Bowen comes in on a couple as well in terms of the metrics that we're looking at today. I'm a little bit salty from the Bowen performance today because his effective ownership was so high in FPL, and Antonio did not score, as far as I know. I haven't checked it since we went live.
No, it finished. I think it finished 2-0. 2-0, yeah.
It's Bowen 2 goals.
Yeah.
Oh, nasty.
It's ruined my Sky season now already, but we won't talk about that.
You were doing quite well in Sky, weren't you?
Still top one. Sky's a difficult game because you get 40 transfers for the season. You could use them all in the first 8 weeks if you want. So it's difficult to know.
It's hard to judge, yeah.
You can have people at the top that have used all of them, that you'll slowly be catching them. But yeah, we'll see.
What are we talking about? Okay, so Antonio, Bowen. Rice is quite a good pick in Fanteam in many ways because of the amount of... Well, I suppose there's a lot of players in the West Ham team, right, who play a lot of minutes because it's Moyes, isn't it? What do you think, Sean?
Rice he was the last man standing in terms of that played every minute of every game. He missed a game. I think he was suspended. So he has, when he's available, he plays 90. I think Souček didn't play tonight. I think he has, I don't think he has COVID or he's just injured, but Souček didn't play tonight. He didn't play a whole midfielder. I think he played Lanzini. But obviously it was only against Norwich. The issue with West Ham is, one, they've only got 17 games, which is the lowest of everyone. And if you look at picks like Antonio, he has no safety net as far as I'm aware, because obviously West Ham don't have a huge amount of strikers. In fact, I'm just going to check. Yeah, there is literally no other West Ham striker in the game. And you know what Antonio's like. Well, we say we know what Antonio's like, but he's gone all season without really being injured. So
14, 90 minutes that's good. That's big. Big numbers.
I just think if it was me and going for a West Ham,
he's played every game apart from that one game, is he? Where he was sent off and suspended, or was it 2 games?
Yeah, maybe. Missed? I don't know. I think I know at the start of the season he was getting pulled with like 88, 89 minutes, so he missed the 90-minute.
Yeah.
By a couple of minutes. I just think if you're going for an attacker at the moment, you're going Bowen surely, because he's producing numbers better. Although Antonio over the season has done, I bet if you were to do those metrics over the last 10 games, Bowen would be head and shoulders above. And you obviously get the added bonus of the fact you've got a safety net under him. But you've got plenty of safety nets under him. You've got every West Ham midfielder, and there are plenty of them. They won't have a double. That's the only thing. But again, their fixtures are Leeds, who are shaky, Man United, Watford, not kept a clean sheet as we discussed, Leicester, Newcastle in the next 5. It's a decent 5. So I don't think you can really load your team up with too many doubles at the start unless you're going to wildcard early. So I think a West Ham attacking asset, and Bowen for me is the best one. He's only 6.5 million still. So I don't think I've got him at the moment, but I think he's definitely being considered, I would say.
Antonio's played 89 minutes 4 times this season and 88 minutes once.
Yeah.
That was today. So very close to Rice almost for 90 minutes.
Yeah, I bet he's not. I bet if you were to look at all the minutes, the total minutes played, so Rice has played 1,800, so he's obviously just missed the one game. Antonio's played 1,749, so he's only played 51 minutes less than Rice. But if you look at Antonio, he's 1,749. Bowen's played 1,767. Souček 1,789. So Rice, Souček, Bowen, Antonio are definitely a core 4 that have played, and then it tends to be flicked around between Benrahma, Lanzini, Fornals. Vlasic has played quite a few recently, so. I just think Bowen at the minute, the form he's in, I don't think I've picked him, but I think I will, after tonight as well, only as Norwich.
You should get on him. He's your boy.
Yeah, I think I did well tonight in terms of FPL and Fanteam. I'm actually checked where I am in the Fanteam. I might have snuck back into the top 1K now.
While you're doing that, I'll talk about Wolves. Not the most exciting of teams going forward, but a decent defence. Shots on target per 90 minutes. Podence, Trincao, Hwang. Probably not people you would trust in Fanteam unless there's some kind of safety net situation going on, which I'll try and check now at the same time. Non-penalty expected goal involvement for 90 minutes. Trincao 0.37. I mean, these are quite low numbers for their best players on that metric, if that makes sense. 90 minutes is Neves 15, Moutinho 14, Jimenez 13. Jimenez would probably be the one you would want to see at the top of these lists, but I think he's injured, right? I mean, I haven't really paid much attention to Wolves lately. Let's have a little look. And he's not injured. Okay. Midfield, just Pedro Neto. Rubbish. Go on, Sean.
I was just saying, attacking wise, they just look. I think I saw the stat the other day. They played 19 games. They'd scored 14. They're less than 1 a game, but they'd only conceded 14 as well. So there's just no goals in Wolves games, essentially. And so defensively, yeah, decent. Attacking wise, you don't want. For me, you don't want a Wolves attacker.
No,
I wouldn't put people off going for a defender.
You can see it in the numbers as well. Like, they're not even like, it's not like they're being unlucky. They're not getting into goal scoring opportunities much.
And even their best 3 players there on the non-penalty XG per 90 doesn't equate to 1 goal. between their best three players. I think
Yeah,
that says a lot,
does
really.
say a lot. Yeah. Let's move on then. Well, that's it. That's every team. We're on to the defensive data next, and we spoke about Newcastle earlier on being a team not to target if you're buying their defenders, but definitely a team to target if your attackers are playing against them, right? Here we've got the Opta stats expected goals conceded from game week 1 to game week 21 per appearance, so per game, I guess you would call that. Newcastle up top with 1.99 expected goals conceded, closely followed by Watford and Norwich. Leicester creeping up there as well, and I did have a little look at, like you said, a more recent time frame, and Leicester, I think they were top or worst, if that makes sense. So that's something to note. But kind of what you'd expect, right, in terms of bad defences, and kind of what you'd expect in terms of good defences, do you reckon?
I'd say so. I'm just before we go on to it, I just like obviously all of the graphics and the stats and stuff that we've got on these slides have all come from Fantasy Football Hub, who have kindly let us use the graphics. So we've got the sort of the link to the website and stuff in the video. So they've kindly let us use them. But yeah, I don't think there's a huge amount of surprise. Man U being in the middle, you think they're decent defensively, but they've not been great, have they? It's interesting that you've got like Crystal Palace, Wolves, and Brighton, and Spurs, given how they'd started the season, are all in the top 8, and Brentford as well. That does sort of, other than the big three are the big three. I think that's a given that they're the best defences. But followed by Spurs, Palace, Wolves, Brighton, and Brentford is probably, you wouldn't have expected that at the start of the season, given how well Leeds did last year, given how well Leicester did, and Man United. But like you said, I don't know how different it would be if you looked in the last few games. It's difficult to look at data recently because you can look at the last 8 game weeks, but you've got so much variance in terms of Burnley might have only played 4. It's difficult to compare team to team really at the moment. But yeah, I think as it goes to prove, which makes the back pick sound strange, but pretty much that is the league table, the bottom 3. Newcastle, Watford, Norwich, and then the top 3, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, are the top and bottom in terms of expected goals conceded. So I think, I think we all know at this stage of the season who the decent ones are to go for. But yeah, in terms of the Wolves ones, I wouldn't put anyone off going for the keeper or defender because we just know what they've been like this season. 14 goals in 19 games conceded. You know, there's a decent chance of a clean sheet.
I've just popped the link to Fantasy Football Hub in the chat if you're watching live. And if you are watching live, by the way, guys, don't forget to hit the like button and hit subscribe as well. If you are new, I'll remember to pop that link in the video description as well for you guys who aren't watching live. They very kindly let us use their graphics, and we've added our own stats then to those graphics. Not our own stats, but you know what I mean. We've kind of made the presentation. Okay, Jack FC next. Let's rip Jack's team apart because he decided not to join us. I'm only joking, Jack. He's got an emergency. He did say he'd try and pop in, but we haven't seen him. So I got Jack's team up, and next to each of our teams, I've got like a little bit of information about the second chance game. So next to Jack's team, I've got the kind of payouts, right? Looking at Jack's team quickly, he's got Sarr in goal from Wolves. Then he's got Laporte, Lamptey, and Emerson Royale. He's got Maddison, Jota, Bowen, and Saka across the midfield, with Kane captain up front, Dennis, and Ronaldo. So he's gone for the Kane and Ronaldo strategy, Sean. Do you like what he's done around the Kane and Ronaldo picks?
Yeah, obviously we've talked about Kane and Ronaldo being decent options. He's obviously got the Watford striker as well, Dennis. Leicester midfielder, as we've said, double to start with, good fixtures. Bowen on fire. He's gone for the Arsenal midfielder in Saka. They've obviously only got singles, Tottenham, Burnley, and Wolves. I don't mind that. I think I've gone slightly different, but yeah, Arsenal are going decent guns at the moment. He's got Jota, like I say. I think I feel okay in the fact that I will swerve. I think I'm going to swerve Liverpool as a whole in the first couple of game weeks, knowing that I can get to get to Salah using one of the big strikers. Do I miss Trent? I can't remember if I picked Trent or not, but yeah, you're going to miss Trent. But there is an argument to say with the Liverpool defence, is Van Dijk better in terms of the fact he's like £1.5 million cheaper? You do lose the attacking threat of Trent, but is there that much difference? Because unlike FPL, where you get the bonus points, and obviously Trent is top of bonus points all the time because of just the way he plays, you don't have that in Fanteam. You don't get bonus. You only get the only real bonus defenders get is the shots on target, which obviously Trent does have quite a few. I think he's had 8 this season on 9. But is that enough to warrant paying an extra 1.5 million over Van Dijk? For me, maybe not. Not as much as it is in FPL. So, yeah, I think that's one to consider from a Liverpool standpoint anyway.
It's definitely an interesting point you make about the bonus points. As someone who sold Trent in FPL and didn't really get him back in quick enough, it was bonus points which kind of made me kind of really need him back, if that makes sense, because he's not just getting clean sheets and an attack and return or whatever, not always together, but he's also getting 3 bonus almost every time because of the way the system works. And so definitely a important point you make there about Fanteam being different and him not maybe being such as good an asset in Fanteam than he is in FPL. Excellent definitely stuff. Okay, Sean Rovers we got next, and we got some of the rules underneath. Sean Rovers. De Gea. So for the podcast listeners, we got De Gea in goal, Cancelo, Lamptey, Reguilon, Moura, Tielemans, Trossard, Rafinha, King, Kane, and Ronaldo. So you and Jack both got Lamptey and a Spurs fullback. You both got a Man City defender. You've got De Gea in goal. He's got Sarr. It's quite similar looking, but then in midfield it's a lot different, right?
Yeah. So we've obviously both got a left. Well, I've got Tielemans. He's got Madison. The midfield is where I'm struggling at the moment. I think my front line is pretty much nailed in terms of I want both the big guns in Kane and Ronaldo, and I want a Watford asset. I've gone for King just because if anything does happen, Dennis is his safety net. Whereas if Dennis doesn't play, you get, I think, João Pedro is his safety net. So I just like if there's only 0.2 between the two, so I'd rather pay the bit extra knowing that I've got a decent safety net underneath. Defensively, as we discussed, I think Brighton, the thing that I do worry about Brighton is the fact they've got the blank, so I might take Trossard out for a Bowen maybe. I haven't got him in here, and I think he's slightly cheaper. But Lamptey, yeah, I want a Brighton defender, and he's the most expensive, most attacking, therefore seems a no-brainer really. The thing with Reguilon, Tottenham have definitely, again, if we looked over the last 10 weeks in terms of goals conceded, expected goals conceded, I bet they're probably the best performing team, I would say, or
they're
one
the best
of.
over I don't know how many weeks, but definitely recently they are the best. Yeah.
The issue I've just seen that there's a few murmurings on Twitter and stuff that Reguilon might have an injury, which
I saw something about that.
Isn't too bad because I'm guessing your safe net would be, I think Reguilon's about 5.2, so I'm guessing you'd get Emerson Royale would be underneath, which isn't too bad.
Let me check. You've got that up in front of you, have you, Sean?
I'm just looking.
Let me check too. Spurs defence. Yeah, so Reguilon is top in terms of price. Then you got Doherty, who's on his way to Wolves, we think. Then Emerson, then Romero, then Sanchez. Yeah, so he's right at the top.
So it's not too bad that you get another wing back on top of him. Cancelo I've gone for just because there might be an argument in similar to Trent and Van Dijk in the fact that is Cancelo worth the extra, but I don't think he's not as much as I think he's only got 6.7, whereas Trent's nearly 8 million now. So there's a bigger difference between Trent and Van Dijk as there would be between Cancelo and Laporte, who I think Jack had. So I think I'd probably rather pay the slight extra for Cancelo over Laporte than I would do paying a 1.5 extra for Trent over And I think Cancelo is more attacking. I think he's had double the amount of shots on target than Trent this
He does
season.
love a shot. He does love a shot. That man.
So I think he's a no-brainer. But yeah, the midfield is probably where I might tweak it. I don't really know if I like the thought of triple Spurs. And that's partly due to the fact they've got a double to start with. But I might just switch. I might switch Trossard to Bowen, just because I'd have to take out both Brighton players in the third week because they've got a blank because of the Chelsea game. So perhaps I take out Trossard for Bowen and then maybe switch more into someone as well. But yeah, I'm relatively happy other than that. Apart from maybe going for Bachmann instead of De Gea in goal.
Good stuff. My team next. Let me just get that up for you guys. I'll read it out for the podcast listeners. I got Bachmann in goal, as we mentioned earlier. I've gone for Keane. I don't really know why. Maybe I'll remember as I'm reading it out. Alonso, Trent, Reguilon. Then I got Son, Salah and Gray, King, Dennis and Ronaldo. So I mentioned it a little bit earlier. I kind of picked this team a day or a couple of days ago, and then coming back to look at it today, it was kind of a bit like, well, why have I picked him? Why have I picked these players, right? But slowly I got to start to realise that, okay, Keane I'm still not too sure about. Maybe it's just because Everton have got a few games or whatever. And I think they played Norwich first, right? Maybe they played Norwich first and they got a double game week coming up or something like that. Anyway, so I'm not too sure about Keane. Alonso, I like. I just like Alonso. It's only the one Chelsea player, so it's not too much of an issue in terms of the blanks. Bachmann, again, maybe it was a price thing, potentially with Bachmann, and he's, I don't know. I don't really know why Bachmann's in there. Trent is kind of an obvious one. Reguilon probably doesn't need too much explaining. Son, I've left in there because of the safety net, right? So if we look at the Spurs midfield, just pull that up a second. So Son is top of the Spurs midfield. So the fact that he's injured isn't really an issue because you get Moura, and then Moura would almost certainly play if Son's injured, right? And he's playing quite advanced. He's doing quite well. I hear Sean's point earlier about the gap in money. Then makes a lot of sense. Maybe that's something I will change, but I don't really mind it. I got Salah as well, so I'm doing the Salah strategy where expecting him to drop down to Jota, and again I'll pull up the Liverpool midfielders while I'm looking at this, because obviously Salah will be top, right, in terms of price. Salah top, then Mane, then Jota, okay. But yeah, as we mentioned earlier, there's a huge drop off after that. But you would expect Jota to play. So essentially I got Moura and Jota there. Like we spoke about earlier, you're essentially picking positions rather than players. So Moura and Jota. Gray, Norwich first. Quite a few fixtures left. Then I got King, Dennis and Ronaldo. So my FOMO here is Kane. Do I go Kane or Ronaldo? Or do I just rip the whole team up and start again, to be honest? Because I'm not really sold with any of it. What do you think, mate?
I mean, I don't mind the double up, Watford double up, because I think they've got the best fixtures over the next two.
Yeah.
The thing with Salah and Son, I get the sort of reason for it in terms of the fact you've got the positions there and you've got the players you want. It's just the fact you've got a decent thing. But with both of them, it works out. You've eventually got Moira and Jota. That's £9.3 million that you've used of your budget, just to get Jota and Moira in. I could see it with one of them. I don't know how long Son's out for. That's the problem. I just think, a bit like I'm thinking, is triple Spurs a bit much? Defensively, yeah, Trent, a Spurs defender. Back when I said I don't mind, I'm thinking about it in mine. Alonso, a bit punty for me, only because.
Really?
Well, you get the safe net, so you get a decent Chelsea defender anyway.
You're not sure if he's going to play? I suppose, yeah. And they're out in the transfer market as well, aren't they, apparently, for a left back as well?
The thing to bear in mind as well, what I think of it, with your captains and vice captains in this second chance game, if you put your captaincy on Alonso, for example, they've got a double to start with. But if he doesn't start either of the two games, you would get, I don't know who's under Alonso in terms of the safety net, but you would get them in. So at the moment,
I actually have my captaincy on. I actually do have my captaincy on Alonso. I don't know why. I put it on Ronaldo. There you go.
But yeah, so if you went for Alonso and he didn't start, you would get Aspilicueta, Chalobah underneath him. But the thing to bear in mind is your captaincy wouldn't go on your safety net.
Oh, really?
So if you pick a player that doesn't start, your captaincy then rolls to your vice captain.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
I don't know what happens if you. I'm assuming that if that's the case for the captaincy, if it rolled to the vice captain and he didn't start either, and you've got a safety net for your vice captain, you wouldn't get a captain, if that makes sense.
I would assume that would be the same rule, yeah. No captain.
Yeah, so you need to make sure you've got a decent, assured vice captain starter if you're going a little bit punty on your captain. Probably not as much of an issue in a double game because they probably will start one of the two. I don't mind the Everton pick. Like we said, I had Gray originally, didn't know why, but it's because of the extra games and the decent fixtures to start with. I probably wouldn't go double. I'd probably look at maybe.
Yeah, I don't know why I've got Keane. I can't figure that one out.
If it was me, I would be tempted to go Keane and Son out. And if you wanted Moira, go for Moira, and then you've got £3 million extra to upgrade Keane to. You could go to a Man City midfielder. You could go to. I don't know if you've got any money left in the bank or not, but if you've got 14.9 million there, you could get two decent 7.5 million midfielders. You could look at the Leicester options. You could look at. I'm trying to think who else has got sort of doubles to start with. I mean, if you wanted to go a bit punty, you could go for a Man U sort of a Sancho or someone like that. But you go for an Arsenal one like Jack's gone for. 15 million at least on two midfielders is you could buy a decent couple with that. You could go Bowen and Foden, something like that.
I'm just looking at my team actually. The team I've got on the slide, I've got Kane in, but the team I'm looking at in front of me, I put Ronaldo in. So I must have just put Ronaldo in just now, switching Ronaldo and Kane around. So for any of you guys who are watching, just kind of hedging my bets with having one United player and one Spurs player, I guess. Yeah, really interesting. Definitely food for thought. Food for thought there.
Definitely, it's different. The strategy around the game is so interesting. The fact the formation can flip as well. So, like, say if you go playing a 4-3-3, you could switch Keane up to a midfielder. You could put Kane down to a defender. There's so much strategy with that. And do you attack for the first 2 or 3 game weeks, then wildcard to bring the Chelsea boys back in? Do you try and roll for 5 and 6 weeks, and then basically you can have 2 wildcards if you had like 6 transfers rolled up? Do that for a week, and then 2 or 3 weeks later, do your actual wildcard.
That's my I'm going to try and do that strategy where it's roll like mad, try and pick players who are safe. But I haven't really done that, have I, with the Watford? Maybe what I'm going to do then, maybe I take Salah out, upgrade Dennis to Kane, take Salah out, and then having Ronaldo and Kane means I can get Salah back because that money is tied up in. If I got 2 transfers, do you know what I mean? I could
It sounds like you're just copying mine and Jack's team now, but
is it? Oh.
I'm only joking.
But because that's the Kane and Ronaldo double up. Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
maybe that's going to be quite a popular thing then.
I think they would be Ronaldo, especially just because of the appeal of Ronaldo.
Yeah, and
Kane hasn't been as at it this. But I just think I can see the Kane Ronaldo Watford striker will be the template team, I would say, which makes me think people like, as we mentioned, Calvert-Lewin against Norwich.
Oh,
he's going to be a massive differential for me, because I think people will either go 2 big ones at the top and then go for a bigger midfield of like 4 midfielders. I just don't see a lot of teams having Calvert-Lewin in it. So I think maybe one of my 3 teams, I might bank on Kane or Ronaldo not doing anything and going for Calvert-Lewin, knowing that they've got doubles further down the line, playing a bit more of the long game. Maybe building a team for 5 to 6 weeks and going, right, I'm going to build this team, not touch it for 5 to 6 weeks, and then see where we're at and attack the doubles later on in the season. It's just, a lot to think about in a short amount of time.
Really cool. I think we'll end it there then, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Do smash a like, do hit subscribe. We'll be back next week, I'm sure, and Jack will be with us. Thanks for coming on, Sean.
That's all right. Just to let everyone know as well, put it on our Twitter page today. I'll put it on the Discord as well. I'll see if we can get a link maybe in the description as well. We're doing a last man standing tournament. on Dream Sport. So for people that don't know, Dream Sport is the equivalent of Fanteam, but it's free to play. You just play with coins on there. So you get 100 coins a day you can claim, and you can play a lot of the same contests. So they've got a second chance tournament on there as well to play. Sometimes they do. So in the season long, you can they had prizes at the start for like real money, but a lot of the time it's just for coins. But it's a good place to sort of practice strategies. Just enter sports you don't necessarily play. But we've made a tournament on there. We're going to get everyone can enter it, and then what we'll do every game week is the 2 or 3 worst performing teams that game week will be dropped off, and then we'll have the last game week of the season. There'll be 3 teams left. The team that wins it will win. I think we've said, I can't remember what the prizes are now, but there's going to be a shirt from Shirt Loot Box on Twitter at Shirt Loot Box.
Nice.
So it's a random shirt. You don't know what's going to be. It could be anything. The winner will get that plus some Fanteam tickets. Second will get a couple of monster tickets, I think, and then third would get, I think, 5 mini monster tickets as well. So free to play. So check it out on Twitter. We've got the link in there. DM us with any sort of questions around how it all works. It's free to enter, so it's just something for sort of give back to the followers and stuff like that.
Happy days, Sean. You should have had that at the top of the show.
Just thought about it last thing. Apologies.
Send me the links then at the end. I'll pop them all in the video description. I'll send you obviously the audio from the show. Guys, thanks for watching again, and we'll see you soon.